AITA for walking away after my fiancée humiliated me with the ring I bought her? The part nobody saw that night was how tired I already was. I'm Logan, 34, and by the time my engagement ended in front of both families, I had spent almost 5 years loving Marissa like effort could outrun judgment. I was the guy who remembered her dad's coffee order, fixed loose cabinet handles without making a speech about it, and kept every receipt because wedding planning turns even calm people into spreadsheet addicts. For a long time, I really believed love could be practical and still be enough. Marissa and I were never one of those couples who looked perfect online every second. We were better in the quiet parts. Cheap takeout on the couch after long days. Her bare feet tucked under my thigh while we watched shows neither of us admitted we liked. Sunday mornings where she made coffee too strong and I burned toast because I always got distracted talking to her. She used to say, "You make everything feel less loud." That sentence stayed with me for years. I carried it through every awkward dinner with her parents, every polished insult, every time her mother smiled at me like she was accepting a coupon for something she never wanted. Marissa's mother, Elaine, never said I was beneath her daughter outright. That would have been too messy. Elaine liked clean cruelty. She could cut you open with concern. "Logan is very sweet," she'd say, touching Marissa's arm at dinner. "I just hope sweet is enough when real life starts." Her father, Richard, was quieter, but somehow worse. He didn't smirk. He didn't raise his voice. He just had this habit of looking at me for half a second too long before answering, like he had already placed me in a category and was disappointed I kept speaking. "Marriage is not built on potential," he once said while cutting into a steak. I looked at him and said, "Neither is respect." Marissa kicked me under the table. Not hard, just enough to say, "Please don't." That was the pattern. They would question me in soft voices. I would keep my posture straight. Marissa would defend me later, in the car, with the heater humming and her makeup slightly faded from the evening. "They're just protective," she'd say. "They'll come around. They don't have to love me," I told her once. "But I need you not to act like I'm hard to explain." She squeezed my hand and said, "You're not." But she never said that in the room. I don't want to pretend Marissa was awful from the start. She wasn't. She was funny, anxious, affectionate, and stubborn in a way I used to find charming. She remembered little things. She'd send me pictures of dogs from parking lots. She cried during commercials that had old people in them. She kissed my shoulder when she thought I was asleep. That's why it took me so long to admit her silence around her family was not fear. It was agreement forming slowly. The first time I heard Preston's name, it was at Elaine and Richard's house during a family dinner. Preston was apparently the son of some old family friends. Elaine described him as focused, settled, and the kind of man who knows where he is going. I didn't think much of it then. Families mention people. Parents compare. I wasn't insecure enough to panic over a name. Then Preston started appearing everywhere. A story from Elaine. "Preston just bought a beautiful place. Very tasteful." A comment from Richard. "Preston always had a clear direction. That matters." A joke from Marissa's cousin Camille. "My aunt talks about Preston like he comes with a warranty." Marissa laughed that one off, but her laugh was too sharp. At first, I told myself it was just Elaine being Elaine. She liked standards, image, and the kind of social polish that made everything look effortless even when it was strangling everyone underneath. I was not polished in the way she wanted. I was steady. I showed up. I paid my share. I fixed what broke. I kept promises. I thought those things counted. They did, just not to her. When Marissa and I got engaged, she cried before I even finished asking. The ring wasn't huge, but it was beautiful. I had saved for it, researched it, and chosen it because it looked like her, not because I thought it would impress anyone else. For a few weeks, she wore it like she loved it. Then wedding planning began, and Elaine inserted herself like a second bride with better stationery. Marissa and I had a shared spreadsheet labeled Wedding Final Details. It had tabs for deposits, refund deadlines, vendor names, payment notes, guest count, seating, and a color-coded column for who had paid what. I made it because numbers calm me down. Marissa teased me for it at first. "You and your little boxes," she said, leaning over my shoulder one night while I updated the catering deposit. "Little boxes keep big disasters from eating us alive," I said. She kissed the top of my head. "That is somehow the most Logan thing you've ever said." Then Elaine saw the spreadsheet and started suggesting changes. The venue should feel more elevated. The food should be less casual. The guest list should include people who matter to the family. The engagement photos should be retaken because the lighting was unflattering to Marissa's features, which somehow also sounded like my fault. One evening, after Elaine called for the third time in 2 hours, Marissa sat at our small kitchen table with her phone face down and her eyes closed. "My mom just thinks it should feel a little more elevated," she said. I put down the stack of vendor printouts. "Are we planning our wedding or auditioning for your family?" She opened her eyes. "Don't start." "I'm not starting. I'm asking. You always make it sound like they hate you. Do they like me?" She didn't answer fast enough. That was when something in me shifted. Not broke. Not yet. Just shifted. A month before the engagement dinner, I saw her phone light up while she was in the bathroom. I wasn't snooping. It was on the coffee table beside me, face up, and the message preview appeared because her settings allowed it. "Camille, did your mom talk to Preston's parents yet?" My stomach dropped in a way I still remember. When Marissa came back, she saw my face and then saw her phone. She picked it up too quickly and flipped it over. "Why is Preston's family part of our wedding stress?" I asked. She went still. "You're reading too much into nothing." That didn't look like nothing. It's family gossip. Camille exaggerates everything. "Did your mom talk to Preston's parents?" Marissa rubbed her forehead. "Can we not do this tonight?" That was the first time I understood that a person can dodge a question so neatly that the answer becomes obvious. I should have pressed harder. Maybe some people will say I was stupid for not doing that. But I had spent almost 5 years training myself not to overreact to Elaine's world. Every time I noticed something, Marissa told me I was being sensitive. Every time I named a pattern, she called it pressure. Every time I asked for public loyalty, she gave me private comfort and expected it to balance out. So I waited. I watched. The engagement dinner was supposed to be a rehearsal-style celebration, not the actual rehearsal. Both families, a few close friends, a private dining room at a nice restaurant Elaine loved, assigned seats, printed menus, and a framed engagement photo near the dessert table. It was too formal for what Marissa and I had originally wanted, but by then I had stopped fighting every detail. I thought peace mattered more than pride. Ben, my longtime friend, arrived early and pulled me aside near the hallway. "You good?" he asked. I looked over at Marissa. She was standing beside Elaine, one hand wrapped around a glass of white wine, the ring bright on her finger. She looked beautiful and far away. "Ask me after dessert," I said. He didn't laugh. Dinner started tense. Not loud. Not visibly wrong. Just tense in that way where everyone is technically smiling, but nobody is breathing normally. Elaine gave a little speech about family, future, and hard choices. Richard nodded along. Marissa kept looking down at her plate. Then Preston's name came up. It wasn't an accident. Elaine mentioned that he had sent his best wishes, which made no sense because Preston had never been part of our relationship. Richard added, "He is a good example of a man who understands timing." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Marissa didn't say anything. I looked at her, waiting for the small correction. A laugh. Mom, stop." "Anything." "Nothing." Elaine turned her attention toward me with that smooth, social smile. "Nobody is saying Logan is a bad man," she said. "We're asking whether he is the right man." The room got quieter. My mother stiffened across the table. Ben leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. Marissa's cousin Camille stared into her water glass like she wanted to disappear inside it. I said, "That sounds like a conversation Marissa and I should have had privately." Marissa finally looked at me, and I knew. Her face was too composed. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was ready. "I have been thinking," she said. My chest went cold. She folded her hands on the table. "I love you, Logan. I do. But I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling like I have to defend my choices. I'm tired of trying to explain a future that still feels unfinished." I stared at her. "How long have you been practicing that?" A few people shifted in their seats. Her mouth tightened. "That's not fair." "No," I said quietly. "What's not fair is doing this here." Elaine put a hand over Marissa's. Richard looked down at his plate. Not surprised. Not confused. Just waiting. That was how I knew it had been planned. Marissa inhaled like she was about to jump off something. Then she slid the ring from her finger. Someone whispered, "Marissa." She placed it hard on the table. The sound was tiny, but I heard it like a glass breaking. Then she pushed it toward me. "This ring always felt like a promise from someone who was trying to become enough," she said. The room froze. I can still see her hand after she said it. Perfect nails. Slight tremble. The pale line where the ring had been. The cruelest part wasn't that she was leaving. People leave. Engagements end. Love fails. The cruelest part was that the sentence sounded rehearsed. Elaine smiled. Not big. Not cartoonish. Just a small, satisfied curve at the corner of her mouth, like she had watched a difficult negotiation close in her favor. I picked up the ring. I put it back in the box I still had in my jacket pocket from showing it to Ben earlier when he asked about the setting. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Ben started to stand. I shook my head once. Then I looked at Marissa and said, "One day you're going to realize I wasn't the embarrassing part of this relationship." I left. No yelling. No drink thrown. No begging. No speech about everything I had done for her. I walked past the framed engagement photo, past the dessert table, past a waiter who looked like he wanted to become invisible. Ben followed me into the parking lot. "Say the word and I'll go back in there," he said. "No," I told him. She wanted witnesses. Let them witness me leaving. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes before I started it. My phone buzzed the entire time. "Mom, I'm coming outside." "Ben, are you okay?" That was brutal. Unknown number, later revealed as one of Marissa's relatives. Please don't make this harder on her. That last one almost made me laugh. I drove home, took off my jacket, placed the ring box on the kitchen counter, and opened the wedding spreadsheet. It is strange what shock does to you. I didn't cry right away. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't call her 20 times. I went numb and practical. The engagement has ended. Please cancel the remaining booking under my name and confirm any refundable balance in writing. Then the photographer, the caterer, the florist, the DJ, the bakery, anyone tied to my card, my name, or money I could legally recover. By 2 a.m., I had created a folder labeled Engagement Closeout. It had vendor emails, payment receipts, screenshots, refund policies, and copies of the spreadsheet. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building a wall between myself and whatever story Elaine was already preparing. And she was preparing one. By the next afternoon, Ben sent me a screenshot from a group chat I wasn't in. Elaine had written, "He is not a bad person, just not the caliber of life Marissa needed. She finally outgrew a sweet mistake." Under it, someone had sent a heart emoji. Then another message appeared from Elaine. "Please be gentle with Marissa. Logan was very emotional last night, and we are concerned about how bitter he may become." I stared at the screen for a long time. Bitter. That was the word they wanted ready before I even had time to feel anything. I told Ben, "Save everything." He replied, "Already did." The messages kept coming for days. Mutual acquaintances. Vendors confused because Elaine or Marissa had contacted them separately. Friends asking what happened because they had heard the wedding was on pause. One person told me Elaine had been saying for 2 weeks that Marissa was reconsidering whether love was enough. 2 weeks. Then Camille messaged me. "I'm sorry. I thought she was going to talk to you privately, not do that at dinner." I read it 3 times before answering. How long was Preston part of the conversation? The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Longer than you were told. That was all she wrote at first. An hour later, she sent another message. "I'm not trying to get involved, but you deserved honesty." Her mom had been talking to his parents. Marissa said she was confused. They kept saying Preston made more sense. There it was. Not a physical affair. Not some motel discovery. Nothing that dramatic. Somehow, it hurt in a cleaner, deeper way. Preston had been an emotional exit door with family approval and better lighting. I later learned enough to understand the shape of it. Marissa had been messaging him. Not love messages, apparently. Doubt messages. Future messages. Screenshots of private conversations between us, sent to make herself look trapped by my pace. She told him my future was too slow to explain. She told Camille she loved me, but didn't know how to keep defending a life that didn't impress anyone yet. That line stayed with me. Too slow to explain. At the time, I had been quietly building stability. Saving. Learning. Making careful moves I didn't brag about because unfinished work is not a performance. Marissa knew pieces of it. She knew I had plans. She knew I wasn't standing still. She just didn't want to wait until I became impressive enough to make her family stop asking questions. She didn't leave because Preston was better. She left because Preston was easier to explain. Marissa tried to call me 4 days after the dinner. I let it ring. Then she texted, "Can we please talk?" I wrote back, "Shared items can be exchanged through Ben. Please email anything related to wedding balances." She responded almost immediately, "So that's it. 5 years, and you're treating me like a transaction?" I typed 3 different responses and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, "You ended our engagement in front of witnesses. I'm handling the consequences in writing." She didn't like that. The next week was a blur of logistics. I boxed her things carefully. Clothes, books, 2 mugs she loved, a framed picture of us from a beach trip I didn't want to look at for another second. I gave everything to Ben and asked him to handle the drop-off. He offered to leave it on her porch. "No drama," I said. He nodded. "Neutral drop." I got some refunds. Lost some deposits. Removed my card from accounts. Sent Marissa 1 clean email with a breakdown of what had been canceled, what had been refunded, and what remained non-refundable. No insults. No begging. Just facts. Then I sent 1 message to our mutual friends when the rumors got too irritating to ignore. Marissa ended the engagement publicly. I'm not discussing it beyond that unless someone lies about me. That was it. Silence is powerful, but only when people understand it is not permission. A month later, Marissa posted a photo with Preston. They were dressed nicely, standing close under warm patio lights. Her caption said, "Sometimes the right path is the one your heart was scared to admit. Choosing peace." Elaine commented, "Finally." Richard commented, "Proud of you." I stared at the picture for maybe 20 seconds. Preston looked exactly like the type of man Elaine would choose from a brochure. Clean smile. Expensive watch. Hand placed at Marissa's waist like he was presenting her. I closed the app and deleted it from my phone for 6 months. The first apology attempt came late one night around midnight. I had just finished washing dishes when Marissa called from a number I hadn't blocked because some part of me had not been as finished as I pretended. I answered. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I never wanted to hurt you like that." Her voice cracked on the last word. I leaned against the counter and looked at the ring box, still sitting in a drawer because I didn't know what to do with it. "You wanted the room to understand I was beneath you," I said. "That is different." She started crying. I was confused. "No," I said. "You were supported. There's a difference." "That's not fair." "I know. You liked me better when I kept saying things were unfair quietly." She whispered my name like it used to mean something. I hung up. That was the closest I came to breaking. After that, I did what people always tell you to do after a breakup, except it felt less inspirational and more like dragging furniture out of a flooded room. I rebuilt slowly. I went back to regular meals. I slept badly for a while, then better. I stopped attending every gathering where I might hear her name. I said no without giving long explanations. I kept the evidence folder, not because I wanted war, but because people like Elaine confuse silence with permission. I didn't become some sudden millionaire. There was no dramatic sports car, no viral revenge post, no magical glow-up montage with expensive suits and a new jawline. I just became more careful with access to me. I worked on my finances. I kept my promises to myself. I stopped explaining my potential to people who were only interested in applauding finished products. I learned that peace feels boring at first when your nervous system is used to defending your worth at dinner tables. Ben checked on me constantly at the beginning. "You know you can be angry, right?" he said one night while we were eating takeout at his place. "I am angry. You look like you're renewing a passport." "That's because if I start talking, I'm afraid I'll sound like them." He softened after that. Tessa came back into my life through mutual friends about a year after the breakup. I had known her casually for years, but we were never close. She was friends with Ben's sister, and we ended up at the same small birthday dinner where I almost didn't go because I was tired of being the guy from the engagement dinner. Tessa didn't ask about Marissa. Not at first. She asked why I hated olives if I had apparently never given them a fair chance. "They taste like salty tires," I said. She laughed so hard she had to put her drink down. There was nothing dramatic about how we got closer. That was what made it feel safe. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became weekend errands. Weekend errands became her standing in my kitchen, reading labels on jars, and making fun of how I organized spices like tiny soldiers. One evening, a few months in, I caught myself trying to explain why I was worth the effort. I was telling her about my plans, my savings, my routines, my goals, all in this tight voice I recognized from years of being evaluated. She put her hand over mine. "You don't have to sell me on yourself, Logan," she said. I'm sitting here because I like who showed up. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Tessa was not a prize I won after being mistreated. She was not there to make Marissa jealous, and she would have hated being used that way. She had boundaries. She had opinions. She once told me I loaded the dishwasher like a man hiding evidence. She was warm without being soft, direct without being cruel. Most importantly, she never treated my steadiness like a lack of ambition. Through Ben and Camille, bits of Marissa's life drifted back to me even when I didn't ask. Preston was not dangerous or secretly broke or anything movie-like. He was just cold, image-obsessed, controlling in the small, deniable ways that people excuse until they add up. He corrected Marissa in public. He told her certain dresses were not the message. He disliked her old friends. He scheduled weekends around his family's expectations and expected her to adapt. Elaine still praised the relationship because admitting Preston was wrong would mean admitting she had helped destroy something real. One night, Ben said, "Apparently perfect Preston has rules about what she wears to family events." I kept cutting vegetables. That's not my business anymore. You don't feel even a little satisfied? I thought about it. No, I said, just tired in a different direction. 2 years after the engagement dinner, Ben's sister got married. It was a full wedding weekend with a welcome party, ceremony, reception, and enough mutual connections that avoiding everyone from my old life would have been impossible. The digital invitation showed the RSVP list. I saw Marissa's name, Elaine, and Richard too. Preston was not listed. I stared at it for a minute, then closed the laptop. Tessa was reading on the couch. She looked up. She'll be there? Looks like it. I don't need to go, she said. I turned toward her. I want you there if you want to be there. Not to prove anything. She closed her book. I don't need to prove anything to your past. Neither do I said. That's why I'm going. The welcome party was held in a private event space with string lights, a bar near the patio doors, and small tables scattered around like nobody wanted to admit it was still a seating chart. The kind of evening where everyone is dressed nicely but pretending the atmosphere is casual. Ben saw me first and hugged me harder than usual. You good? He asked. I smiled. Ask me after dessert. He laughed this time. Tessa squeezed my hand once, then let go. She didn't cling. She didn't perform. She greeted people, made easy conversation, and somehow ended up discussing bad rental furniture with Ben's sister within 10 minutes. The strangest part was that I didn't feel like I was entering a room with my ex in it. I felt like I was entering a room where a bad chapter happened to be standing near the bar. Then Marissa saw me. Her face changed so fast I almost felt sorry for her. First recognition, then shock, then something that looked like anger but was probably grief wearing the wrong coat. She looked good, but not happy. There was a tightness around her mouth I didn't remember. Elaine stood beside her, holding a glass and scanning the room the way she always did, measuring status like temperature. Her eyes landed on Tessa, then on me. For the first time since I had known her, Elaine looked unsure what category to put me in. I did not go over. I did not avoid them either. I talked to friends. I congratulated the bride and groom. I laughed when Ben told a story badly and had to start over. Tessa touched my arm lightly when she wanted to point out a dessert tray, and the simple ease of it felt like proof of something I did not need to announce. About an hour in, Marissa approached while Tessa was speaking with Camille near the patio doors. Logan, she said. I turned. Marissa. Her eyes flicked over my face like she was searching for damage and upset not to find enough. You look different, she said. I'm older. That's not what I mean. I know. She swallowed. Can we talk somewhere private? No. She blinked. Just for 5 minutes. No, I repeated. Privacy is for people who protected me in public. Color rose in her cheeks. I deserved that, she said, but the way she said it made it sound like a line she hoped would unlock the next door. I didn't answer. She lowered her voice. There are things you don't know. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I know enough. No, you don't. I was under so much pressure. My parents, the wedding, everything. I was confused. Ben had noticed by then. He stepped closer, but stayed silent. Elaine appeared behind Marissa like she had been summoned by discomfort. Logan, Elaine said, all smoothness and damage control. It has been a long time. I hope we can all be adults. I've been one, I said. Her smile tightened. Everyone was under pressure back then. I looked at her. Really looked at her. No, I said. I was under pressure. You were applying it. Marissa whispered, Mom, don't. That was new. Elaine lifted her chin. We all made mistakes. You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a campaign. A few people nearby went quiet. Camille turned from the patio doors. Tessa looked over, but did not move toward me. She trusted me to handle my own past. Marissa's voice sharpened. You act like I meant nothing to you. That one hit, but not the way it would have 2 years earlier. You meant enough that I left instead of becoming the villain you needed, I said. Her eyes filled. I made one mistake. No, I said. You made one decision in front of everyone, and then you spent 2 years disliking the outcome. Elaine gave a soft laugh, meant for the people around us. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Bitterness. There it was again. The same word. The same frame. I pulled out my phone. Not dramatically. Not like I was about to expose a murder. I opened the old folder I had kept backed up and selected one screenshot. Just one. The group chat message Ben had sent me the day after the dinner. I showed it to Ben first, then Camille, because they were the two people present who had lived close enough to the truth to understand the weight of it. Elaine's message was clear. He is not a bad person, just not the caliber of life Marissa needed. She finally outgrew a sweet mistake. Below it was the timestamp from before anyone had even checked on me. Camille closed her eyes. Ben looked at Elaine with disgust. He didn't bother hiding. I put the phone away. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, I said. I'm here because I'm done letting people call cruelty confusion. Elaine said nothing. For once, her words did not arrive on time. Marissa stared at me like she was seeing both the old me and the current me at the same time and hating that she no longer had access to either. I didn't know she sent that, Marissa said. But you knew what she believed. She wiped under one eye. Preston wasn't what everyone thought. I heard. He was cold. Everything was about how things looked. I couldn't breathe. I said nothing, because anything I said would have sounded cruel. She stepped closer. I thought I was choosing stability. You were choosing approval. Her face crumpled. I always knew you had this in you, she said. And there it was. The deepest insult, dressed as a compliment. I looked at her, and for 1 second I saw the woman who used to drink terrible coffee in my kitchen, who once told me I made everything feel less loud, who cried when I proposed. I saw her. I just didn't want her back. You knew enough to wait, I said. You chose not to. She covered her mouth. I was scared, she whispered. I know. Then why are you being so cold? That almost made me angry. Because cold was not what I had been. Cold was not remembering her father's coffee order for years while he treated me like a temporary inconvenience. Cold was not answering vendor emails at 2 in the morning because she turned our ending into a performance. Cold was not refusing to scream so she could call me unstable. Cold was what she had mistaken for clarity when she slid my ring across a table. But I didn't say all that. I said, you didn't lose me 2 years ago. You threw me away in front of witnesses. The silence after that was heavy, but not explosive. Real life usually isn't as loud as people expect. Nobody clapped. Nobody gasped like a movie. Elaine looked furious. Camille looked ashamed. Ben looked proud and sad at the same time. Tessa walked over then, not to claim me, not to compete, not to make a scene. She simply stood beside me and touched my wrist. You okay? She asked. I looked at Marissa one last time. For the first time, I said, I don't need her to understand what she did. Then we left. Outside, the air was cool. The parking lot was quiet except for music leaking faintly from inside the venue. Tessa didn't ask me to process everything immediately. She just walked beside me. At the car, she said, I'm not here to compete with a woman who mistook cruelty for clarity. I smiled a little despite everything. That was very specific. It was a very specific situation. We drove home with the windows cracked. No dramatic kiss. No victory post. No picture uploaded for Marissa to see. Just the road, the streetlights, Tessa's hand resting open between us in case I wanted to hold it. I did. A few weeks later, I sold the ring. For a long time, I had kept it in a drawer because part of me thought it needed to mean something. Proof. Failure. Warning. I don't know. But one Saturday morning, I took it out, looked at it under the kitchen light, and realized it was just an object from a promise someone else had decided to turn into a weapon. The money wasn't life-changing. Tessa and I used some of it for a quiet weekend away and put the rest toward ordinary things. Groceries, a repair, dinner at a place with paper napkins and excellent fries. That felt right. Marissa tried once more to reach me through Camille. She wanted real closure. She wanted me to know she was sorry. Camille, to her credit, asked before passing anything along. I told her no. Not because I wanted Marissa to suffer. Not because I needed to punish her forever. But because closure is not a private meeting where the person who humiliated you gets to feel understood. Closure was me leaving the dinner without begging. Closure was canceling the wedding plans in writing. Closure was surviving the version of me Elaine tried to create. Closure was standing in the same room 2 years later and realizing my chest did not collapse when Marissa said my name. Maybe some people would say I should have heard her out. Maybe they would say I was cold for refusing one final conversation after 5 years together. I understand why it might look that way from the outside. But the version of me who needed her apology died the night she made my humiliation part of her announcement. What came after him was quieter, harder to manipulate, and much less interested in being chosen by people who only recognized value after someone else did. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.